SpaceX has a new goal for 2025. They are going to build one rocket every 3 days or two rockets every week, and that rocket is called the Starship. More specifically, they are talking about the Starship super stage. That's the point bit and a top with wings sticking out. If you are then going to build those rockets in a very special new manufacturing plant called the Star Factory, this is all part of the company ultimate goal to colonize the Mars planets and build a self-sustaining city of 1 million people. Its ambition to stay, at least in order to even being accomplishing these goals, the first thing that SpaceX is going to need will be rocket big ones and lots of them. Let's establish the location of your Star Factory. This is Boca Chica, Texas. It's located on a Gulf Coast just right here, north on the Mexican border, and it's about as far south as you can get in the United States without being in a Florida endeavors. Now you are probably seen a SpaceX Starship rocket launch before. If not, this is what that looks like. Pretty cool. The launch pad is down by the water and Boca Chica, Texas, while the Star Factory where those rockets are built is about 2 and 1 by 2 mile back Iceland at what used to be called Boca Chica Village, but has now become known as Starship. Starbase is ostensibly company town on the top engineers and the administrators at SpaceX. Elon Musk himself spent a lot of time living there, if also soon to become the company official headquarters and whatsoever. The building they test the largest, most powerful rocket system in the world. The currently Star Factory site as previously occupied their three long stands. These are new manufactured Starship V1. That's a rocket that news from 5 orbital test hopes in 2020 and 2021, and is followed by 6 orbital flights with a super heavy booster beginning in April 2023. The booster is the entire bottom half of the fully integrated rockets. It's basically just two gains fuel tanks with 33 engines stuffed into the bottom, while the Starship itself in a super stage. This is much more complex vehicle. It has 6 engines, 4 motorized control flaps, a payload bay, and a heat shield. This ship is also home to the brain, the rocket powerful flight, computer and communication system that uses Starlink satellite internet to connect this mission control back down at Starbase. They built their will intensive and well-trained system allowed SpaceX to get up and running very rapidly when Starship operations. If you are for ideal solution, Elon Musk has said that the first phase of Starship manufacturing everything as always convert in the mud of the dust, and there were birds everywhere, but the tents allowed for a level of the flexibility and SpaceX required in those early days, since they are never being anything like Starship built before. No more really know that the finished product was going to look like, so the non-permanent nature of the tents allowed for rapid changes in the design and manufacturing process. If you are try something and it doesn't work, then just scrap and try something else. This is how was ended up, and Starship rockets. This is some case were very different build to build and generally saw the reflected in how successful or unsuccessful the vehicles were in actions. That process through trial and error has finally come together into a new Starship design, and Elon Musk SpaceX fuel confident and accomplished some pretty ambitious goals and a fully rapidly reusable orbital vehicle that can transport people and cargo to the moon and Mars. Elon has said that the 10 system becomes very inefficient once you what you want to build, and what's where Starship V2 comes into play. This in a vehicle that in fly for the first time on the 7th orbital launch of the Starship and Super Heavy, and more the first time in the ship was loaded with a payload that could be developed into space. Unfortunately, the first experience with Starship V2 was shot in spring and leak of fire and explode while on the way the space, which just goes to show that the work is ever done, there's always room of the improvement that SpaceX does best continuous improvement, something the Japanese refers and the Chinese, and it's a core physiology in their cultural small change over time will lead to big improvements, and that's what Starship testing has always been about. The design of Starship V2 for some time called Block V2 is not rapidly different from the classic V1. It's a little bit taller by about 2 meters, and the strength allows it to carry 25% of fuel than before, which then allows the ship to fly higher and faster while carrying heavy weight. The biggest visible changes to the Starship Block 2 really comes around the nose cone and the design of the arrow flaps. If we remember back to the Starship flight test, number 4, we get a close-up view of a nose flap and is closely designated throughout the re-entry process. This is the not supposed to open, and SpaceX definitely know their flap design wasn't ideal to begin. Their failure to get flight alone expressed some doubt, and the engine maximize would to scroll enough as also wrote this post back in 2021. The said forward flaps will change a lot of upcoming variants, but the team they needed some real world flight data to help steer them in the right direction. This is what there comes up with the V2 nose flaps and more diamond shaped with a distance point in a trailing edge that's going to help push the shock waves from the atmosphere away from the ship body and the present too much pressure from building up and under the wing. The V2 flaps are also mounted higher up to nose. They will increase a movement of leverage. They all can export the ship and they are further back to the leeward side of the hull, and this again will help to reduce the amount of hot plasma that builds up underneath. Then on the re-entry in addition, we can see that the new flaps are about half the thickness the new originals with the much lower profile hygiene as well as for the heat shield and got load more tiles on the V2 nose cone. They wrap about the cover more of what leeward side of the vehicle and should hope prevent the future melting indicates if they are important to include up because Starship has a heater tank up inside the nose cone. That's where they store all the proper planet of the landing burn. In Starbase reporters have already been able to watch the V2 nose cone segments being worked on inside the Star Factory because there is deep right next to the one of the large windows of the manufacturing process that SpaceX is using inside the Star Factory is something that Elon has described as a linear adjustment flows, which seems to be a terminology that originates Elon Musk because every result when you Google it just people wondering and alone meet when the said and now being able to given us the right answer even when asked on X a few months ago. Elon also rapidly simple but extensional principles from it. I've getter Star Factory production is kinding for the opposite of the standard moving assembly line has the accomplished fight Henry Ford 100 years ago. Where product moves down a conveyor belt and gradually has more and more stuff attached to it until it's become a finished product. Elon Musk announced from building Tesla vehicles and also is a lot of room for the improvements. Overstead the old system. This is a linear adjustment follow in the properly something every similar to exactly the same as Tesla. Neon books manufacturing process, which is all about building out separate segments on a car, is in parallel manufacturing, then bringing them all together at the very end. So interested building the body of a car from front to the back, one of the line, then adding doors, then sending it off paint shop, then putting it back in the line, then talking the doors of this installation and cease the putting the doors back in unbox. Meanings building the front on the car and back of the car onto separate lines that run is parallel on adjustment and each ever more. Halves get built, painted seats and the interior installed and one of the continuous process. Then one of the drilled adjustment lines, you build the sides of the car and the door. When the final assemble, you bring the front and back together. You attach the sides and the doors, add the glass and vehicles are your core a car when Alon talks about the production line in a Star factory. She says there are stations that things move through. Each station has specially for labor, more each individual tanks and the tempo at which the products move from the one station to the next is key. The whole process that means no downtime and waiting for the next thinking to arrive continuous move motion of the production line, but the line itself does not move. Alone says that it doesn't matter if they are Conover built their house displays outside the store factory. The production process begins at the end of the building. That's the futuristics from the roads. They are where gains rolls on the stainless steels and cut the welded into rings. This makes up the body segment of the ship and nose. Cones are little more difficult to make. The pointless segment and the stainless steels needs to be pressured into shape using a process called a strand. For moving, they do a same to same. A road comes that caps of the tops and the bottoms of the ships. Fuel tanks or rings get stacked and welded together into segment 3. 5 rings ever section. You can see that the roof line of the Star Factory gets higher as it gets close to the roads and corresponds with the rocket segments become smaller as they are moved down. The assemble lines never the ends. Everything is starting to look pretty much like a starship and less like a pile of steel. We can see where SpaceX has different stations for the mounting and checking heat shield tiles for fitting and plumbing fuel tanks for the building thruster assembles. They are also being big glass full of computer desks that might not seem like a big deal, but it shows that the engines and the coders who design this process are not for and that it working from luxury condos and the sunny beaches. They are right. They are the production floor next to technicians. They are actually put this stuff together, but even the taller segment, the factory is too short to hold a full assembled Starship. So just like a Tesla unbox line, well, they build the front, back and sides of the vehicles. SpaceX built the top, bottom, and the middle of the Starship is individual segments. Means SpaceX says that the Star Factory allows them to the move integration work of the earlier phase of the manufacturing process. Back in the 10 days, each of the rocket segments would come out of the manufacturing phase as nothing more than gained fuel steel tube wouldn't be until the final assemble there all of the gores and attachments they actually make its spaceship would get installed. So you are no some segments comes out on the Star Factory. These flaps and heat shield already installed. There are also a lot of plumbing and electrical going to inside as well. The middle of the rocket is mostly homogeneous planet tanks with a lot of pipes running through them, and the bottom is where the magic happens and thrust segments. Those 3 things, their broad Star Factory has moved on the Starship equipment on the generally assemble area and Mega Bay. Starbase has 2 Mega Bay, and this is the final rocket tracking. Thinking's place of rapid engines touch and go into making the vehicle ready of the action. We know that Elon Musk has some pretty ambitious goal of Starship production. This Star Factory might be the first, but that certainly won't be the first and last. Elon Musk says that is a going long term. He could see SpaceX building 1,000 Starship per year. What will be into the Mars City building phase, but the short term, the things that the exciting Star Factory can build around 100 rockets per year on our 3 days. So SpaceX is already laying the foundation for the Star Factory. 2 of their property and the Cape Canaveral. Never the launch pad that also being constructed. The Starship down there will last every double the rocket building there. So every day with a half some adding efficiency throwing in the sudden space is building 1 rocket per day. This is ultimate goal to establish a fleet of the 100,000 Starship and heaven all ready to travel from the Earth to Mars. In one epic convey to humanity, well, it will bridge the gap between 2 planets and extend the cannibalization to a whole new world.